Okay, let me call the meeting of the River Trail School District Board of Education to order at 7:02 p.m. on this 14th day of December 2021. Are you guys going to perform for us, or are we just doing the pledge?
Just doing the pledge.
Okay. Come on up front. If you guys could stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. We also have some members of the strings.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Our pleasure. And Dr. Stolzer, could you call the roll, please?
Camardo.
Here?
No, here, this is.
Fiorito,
Here.
Friedland,
Here.
Grimpy,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Ronstadt.
You will be joining us late today.
Okay. Stolzer here, we have a quorum.
Okay, that brings us up to the consent agenda. This is an action item. And just so everybody is aware, we're going to be pulling the memorandum of understanding. We have something to discuss before we vote on it. So other than that, we'll be voting on everything but that. So would anyone else like anything pulled or discussed? Correct, 4E is going to be pulled to be discussed separately. Okay, can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda minus 4E on the memorandum of understanding?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Johnson, second by Fiorito.
Stolzer, yes. Fiorito,
Yes.
Friedland,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Camardo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Dr. Wider would like to discuss the memorandum of understanding, please.
You may or may not know that our association board meets right before our Board of Education meetings. And on occasion, if there's something that we're working on together, I'll get a call, usually during my dinner. Not a big deal. The dogs don't mind. And today's call was the leadership team requested that we add one line to the document, and they have a signed document already. And would you mind reading it exactly as it's written on there?
Do you go to the mic, please, so everyone can hear you?
Thank you. I just want to
Thanks,
make
Bob.
sure that people know what they're voting on.
Yeah, Perfect. The change is just to say that any training will be voluntary.
And that seemed very reasonable in terms of our understanding. And it was not our plan to force that training on anyone, but I know that it does make people feel more comfortable when things are specifically spelled out.
Question.
Go ahead.
So where is that going in this document? And what's the wording?
The wording is as stated, and where is it going is
As stated, what?
underneath the fifth paragraph,
2, 3,
I believe.
terms, okay.
So right above the standard boilerplate.
Okay, so
would
the
be the last
parties,
sentence above the boilerplate.
so it will say the parties agree that this will be voluntary?
Correct.
Okay, and now we're going to get a copy of this with that wording in it then. Please.
Before you vote, we have a copy. Do you have your signed copy?
I don't.
You don't, okay.
Well, I've learned in the past, I've been burned too many times. So I will not be, even though I agree with the premise and what you want to do, until I see the document that I know what I'm voting on, I will not vote for it.
I support you, Bob. I'll definitely vote for it.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
If it does deviate from what Mr. Kastner has said, it wouldn't be approvable, I guess, once we look at it, so.
So I do have a question. So then, once that's updated, where does that get posted to? Like, do we ever put that back in board book, or do we have to put it on to the next?
If we vote on it,
Right
it can
now?
get approved tonight,
Okay,
yes.
okay. And then it'll just go along with all of our other agreements.
It would
Okay.
be just as if anyone on the board decided to change the language in the motion.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding with the addition that it is voluntary and agreed upon by all parties?
So moved.
Moved by Fiorito, second by Grimpy.
Fiorito.
Moved by
second
Fiorito,
Grimpy.
second by Grimpy.
Camardo,
No.
Fiorito,
Yes.
Stolzer, yes. Johnson,
No.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Friedland.
Yes,
So we have a 4-2. So motion carries.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, this
Thank
brings us up to the public
sorry,
hearing.
one quick thing. Can we just have an email of that? Because I know you're going to want it too, just so we have it on file, once it's completed.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Brings us up to the public hearing on the 2021 tax levy. We need to go into public, or, public hearing, sorry. Can I get a motion and a second to open the public hearing on the 2021 tax levy?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Friedland, second by Johnson.
Friedland,
Yes.
Stolzer, yes. Grimpy,
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Fiorito.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Public hearing is opened at 7:09. Dr. Schuster, you have the floor.
Okay, this is the 2021 levy. I don't know, is that allowed? I'm in school. Okay. What if does this work if I just get it closer here? Is that better? Okay. All right, I'll do that. Okay. So the 2021 levy, Illinois state law requires a hearing if the levy's over 5%. Our levy is just under 5%, but our board likes to be transparent and always has a hearing. The tax levy is extremely important to the school district. 84% of our revenues come from property taxes. However, our property tax increase on all existing properties is limited to either 5% or the CPI from the previous year, so 2020, whichever is lower. Our CPI in 2020 was 1.4%. We've averaged less than 2% for both the last 5 years and the last 10 years. So in addition to this limit for the CPI, we can do taxes on any new properties that come into our area. However, in Cook County, we won't know what those new properties are until July of 2022. And actually, this coming year, it's going to be even later than that. So we levy high enough to capture almost anything that might come our way. But we only actually collect taxes on the new property that gets assessed for this year would be in 2021. So we are levying an extra 3.5% for those new properties. What we know about is children's playland, or what we are anticipating because they are there now. The Senior Independent Living Center, Nicholas and Associate, there's a sushi restaurant, and a few other small things. We're hoping for about $2 million in equalized assessed value of new property. This gives you a little graph of where we've been. 2012 was the last year of the Randhurst development. So since that time, we have varied between about $1.5 million up to about $3 million. Last year was a very low year at less than $800,000, but I think it took a while for development to get going after COVID. You can see there's only 4 new properties in this whole thing for this year, which is a very small amount. So one of the things, the way that Illinois taxes work are that the equalized, well, first the property's assessed. Homeowners are at 10%, businesses are 25%, and if they are a Class 6B, which we have quite a few Class 6Bs over in Kensington, they are also assessed for 10% for 12 years. Then that assessed value is supposed to be 1/3 the value of the property, the fair value of the property. However, in Cook County, it never is, and they have an equalizer, which has usually been around 3. This year it's 3.2. It's a little higher than normal. And so the assessed value gets multiplied by the equalizer. That equals your equalized assessed value, and then that times the tax rate is your taxes extended. So there's an inverse relationship between EAV and the tax rate because we're capped at the CPI. So as the EAV goes up, the tax rate goes down. As it goes down, the tax rate goes up. And the properties in Cook County are assessed once every 3 years. The North Cook was 2019. This year it has been it has been Chicago, which is slowing things down a lot, as well as they got a whole new they've gone off the mainframe, I think, into the cloud and got a whole new computer system that's slowing them down too. So in this bar graph, the blue is the equalized assessed value, the red is the tax rate. No, I got the other way around. The blue is the tax rate, the red is the equalized assessed value, and the green bars are extended taxes. Whoops. Okay, so for this year, our total levy for all funds is an increase of 4.5%. For the capped funds, which excludes debt service, it's 4.9%, which gives us $25.6 million in taxes, is what we're levying for. However, what it seems we'll most likely get will be $24.9 million, which is 1.4% for CPI. That's $325,000 additional taxes on current properties, and then that kind of new property will only give us an additional $76,000. As I said, we're estimating $2 million, so the total expected increase will be 1.7%, even though we're levying the 4.9%. One thing to note, if you're a resident, back in 2007, residents paid 59% of the taxes. There has been a shift from commercial industrial towards residents in our community, though it seems to have levied off over the last 5 years. It's now about 64%. And some of that is because of the 6Bs over in Kensington. So you might also find in your tax bill that it might increase more than the CPI that I've talked about. This could be because there's a new building or you've added on to your house. It's also possible that your property was underassessed, and when they reassessed it, the value went up. As I mentioned, 2019 was the assessment year for northern suburbs. Your property value, it's a whole pot of money for all existing property that goes up the 1.4%. So your property value could decline relatively less than other properties, or it could increase relatively more than other properties, so you'd get a slightly different tax rate. And our district makes every effort to responsibly use the dollars of the community taxpayers. However, state and federal funding for education is shrinking, though we were able to get some extra grants over the last couple years. Unfortunately, our school district, because we are in a good neighborhood, didn't get as much of those kind of grants as a lot of other school districts. Our property tax appeals have been on the rise. We had over $1 million last year in refunds we had to give back. But we are aware that there is an extra burden on individuals. So as part of our strategic plan, all of our programs are evaluated for their effectiveness. We review our staffing plans every year and actually throughout the year. Our department budgets are carefully monitored, and they're pretty much redeveloped from a zero base every year. And we also look for any kind of grant opportunities that we can find. You will hear about Bosch, I think, this evening. They gave us a $50,000 grant. They have been wonderful, given us a grant every year for about the last 5 or 6 years. And that's it. Questions?
This is a public
It's a
hearing, so
public
if anybody
hearing,
has
so
any
yeah.
questions, feel free to let us know. Any members of the board have any questions for Dr. Schuster?
So just to be perfectly clear, myself as a homeowner, Lyndall,
Yes.
my property taxes will go up 4%?
It was 1.4%.
Right, but I'm saying, because we are voting for a tax levy to capture the biggest amount, so I'm saying as a homeowner,
No, yours will not. It will go up as an existing property, which is the 1.4%.
right,
Plus or minus, because you're just one little tiny part of the pie.
right. So we're doing this to capture the biggest possible, but myself
to
as a
just capture
homeowner,
new property. We
Right.
only levy over that 1.4% to be able to capture the new property,
right,
any new property. So if somebody raised a house next to you and built a new one, we'd want to tax that property at the proper amount of
Yeah,
the
and those new
value of the
businesses we
raised
said
house,
being
of the new
built.
house, yes.
so those it's
That's the additional that's added onto there.
right. So myself as a existing homeowner, I should not expect
No,
that.
it would be the 1.4%.
Thank you.
For our portion, there are several other taxes, so it's a little hard to tell.
Right, but
too.
correct,
And it gets-
yes,
it's
for
all
our
part of a pie.
portion, right. Thank you.
So just to summarize, a lot of people's property taxes is not based on those governmental groups that need the money. It's more based on the Cook County assessor and how they determine the value of your property. That's the biggest reason why property taxes usually go up.
Yes.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for? Okay, then I will entertain a motion in a second to adjourn the public hearing on the 2021 tax levy.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Fiorito, second by Johnson.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Stolzer, yes. Johnson,
Yes.
Fiorito,
Yes.
Friedland,
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we've adjourned the public hearing at 7:20 PM. Brings us up to RTEA comments. Would any member of the union like to speak? Thanks, Bob.
On behalf of the RTEA Executive Board and the entire membership, I'd like to thank the administration and the Board of Education for our wonderful, continuing, ongoing working relationship. I'd also like to thank President Grimpy, Mr. Fiorito, and Ms. Friedland, and Dr. Wagner, Dr. Schuster, for the great negotiations that we've constantly been going through. It's been quite an amazing experience, and we look forward to meeting with you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kastner. Visitors' comments. I did not receive any cards, but I do have a public one. 1 second here. So this was submitted online. The public has till 3 PM to submit any questions or comments on our webpage. I did receive one from Mrs. Natalie Hudson. Her comment is, it is disappointing that Prairie Trails is a green school and still does not have recycling services. Just so that she's aware, the bins have been ordered and we're still waiting for them to arrive. But custodians have been taking recycled goods over to the elementary schools to still be recycled. So we are still being as green as we can, but that did not get to her, unfortunately. So that was the only public comment I had. Anybody else? Okay. This brings us to board communications. Any board member have anything they would like to share?
I will share about the concert last night. There was a couple concerts last night, but I attended the 6th grade chorus and band concert, which was delightful. I can't really think of, there's many descriptions, but it was just delightful and honestly quite emotional. It's been like 2 years since we had a in-person performance, and I think our, arts department has done a phenomenal job of trying to, keep all those things going in some virtual format, but it was so wonderful to have an in-person performance. Just myself having a daughter who that feeds her soul, that was amazing to be able to see, just see her up there and see all the rest of the kids, kind of doing, things that are normal and are, for those kinds of kids, really, like I said, feeds their spirits. And those people that we have, Mr. Kuzmanov, who was just here earlier, Mr. Smith, Mr. Flowers, and our music teachers in our elementary feeder schools who help feed our music program. We really have such amazing staff and really an amazing program. My husband, who's at the high school level, was like, you guys really have a really robust, amazing music program. He's like, it's very amazing. So just all that we had, and it was fantastic to witness. I think you take it for granted.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Sue said, because I was at all three concerts, the orchestra last Wednesday, and then the band and chorus concerts on last night. We are really blessed in our district to have an incredible music program. We have three great leaders, Kuzmanov, Flowers, and Mr. Smith, and it was 21 months since we had our last concert, which was an orchestra concert, and it was actually 2 years since we had a band and chorus concert. So the excitement was pretty much carried forward through the kids, the parents, and the staff last day. And to piggyback on what Sue said, we are blessed that our music programs really start at the elementary schools, and that's Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Van Eck at Indian Grove, Prairie Trails, and at Euclid. They really get the kids engaged and going, and we have our programs we're starting to build back up. I know orchestra's getting back to their level. Chorus is a little slow, but band is exceeded what they had in the past. So as far as the northwest suburbs go, I don't think there's any middle school or junior high in the area that has a finer music program than we do. I know I might be a little bit biased, but just look around and see a performance. And I know Ben Finford does a phenomenal job capturing all that live streaming. And if you ever get a chance, take a look at it. You'd be so impressed at these kids. Thank you.
Anybody else? I do have a couple donations that I'd like to recognize. Mrs. Libby Ryman from Grace Lutheran Church donated $250 to the River Trail School District student activities, and we also received an anonymous donation of $100 also for the River Trail School District student activities, so we thank the public for that. And we also have another one for Euclid volunteers, Michael Levant and Steve Biddle.
And if I could ask, Ms. Hogan, if you wouldn't mind going up to the podium, and Mr. Grimpy, I'm going to say a few words about our wonderful volunteers.
Great.
And I think there's something special up there that, and as we talk about you, if you wouldn't mind, then they'll call you up. First, I'd like to speak about Steve Biddle. Mrs. Daly would really like to be here, but she is at home with a sick child, so she so appreciates all of the volunteers over at Euclid, and it's not that she doesn't want to be here tonight. But so Steve Biddle volunteers a few days a week in several classrooms. He helps inside classrooms. He works with small groups, takes walking breaks with students, reads with students, practices math and literacy skills. And when we relocated to the bridge, that one day where we had no ability to flush toilets, Mr. Biddle voluntarily traveled with us to support the students and the staff. And really his support was welcome because he's so great with the students. He rolls with changes because no day is ever the same, and he's always helpful and positive. And he was the first volunteer to return to Euclid School after we all returned to Euclid School. So, Mr. Biddle, if you wouldn't mind, go up to the podium. We can give you a round of applause. And Michael Levant. He also volunteers in several classrooms a few days a week. He works with small groups, walks with students, reads with students, practices literacy and math skills with students, and he's always practicing his Spanish language, and he has become a part of the fabric of Euclid. So thank you very much, Mr. Levant. Thank you very much. I have to say, I put a note out about, do you have any volunteers at your school that you'd like us to recognize? And I can't believe the email actually made it all the way to Miss Daly and back to me in that short amount of time, because she wanted to make sure that the two of you are thanked for everything that you do. So thank you very much.
You're absolutely welcome to, but.
Euclid, so if you want to take off, feel free. We just thank you for coming.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to new business, education services, and we'd like to bring up Ms. Vaitsman to present an update on Prairie Trails Preschool.
Thank you. So, good evening. Thank you for letting me talk a little bit about preschool at Prairie Trails. This is just a big picture overview of what our programming looks like, how we work together as a team now that we're all in one building, which is fantastic because we're able to do a lot of teaming with preschool and kindergartner. So it's a fantastic place to be. So. There we go. So, like I said, early learning is all at one place. So we have the ability to be able to have special education planning and general education planning all together in the same place. So our preschool consists of, we have our blended program, we have an instructional program, we have our bilingual Spanish program, and then we also serve ECDAC, which is not actually at Prairie Trails. It is housed this year at Euclid. Past years, we've been together in the same place. It's all just pretty much based on space. So we do a lot of conversations. What we're coming to find is now that we're all under one roof, our preschool has done a lot of communication with kindergarten. We're already starting to talk about transitions for next year, kind of looking at what our programming looks like for our students to make sure that we're able to support the students that we have currently in our programming. We have opportunities to collaborate and observe. So now that we're all on one roof, under one roof, it makes it super easy to be able to, on a planned period, go into another classroom and observe peers at preschool, and then also go in to observe some of their old students at kindergarten and kind of troubleshoot and problem solve some issues that they've been having. We've had lots of curriculum conversations, things that have come up that I don't think would have come up had we not been in one place, because it just comes up naturally. And so a lot of our teaming and planning revolves around having those kindergarten and preschool conversations together. As you know, preschool we have no pre-K on Thursdays. So we do use Thursdays. One Thursday a month is used for our pre-K screenings, where we have either early intervention students coming in, members of the community who'd like to have their children screened. That happens on Thursdays. We have IEP meetings on Thursdays. The other Thursdays where it's used to plan, and then that observation piece, whether it's going to observe another school for a placement for a student, it gives all of our teachers that time to be able to do that. So what does our programming look like? So we are considered what we call an integrated program. So we have supports built into our program, into our classrooms. We have social work. Our social worker goes into the classrooms, our instructional classroom, our blended classroom, and even into our Spanish classroom as well. We have a speech pathologist designated for preschool. We have our district occupational therapist that works pretty heavily in our pre-K classes, as well as a physical therapist that comes in from NSSEO that works in our program as well. We do have 4 blended pre-K programs. So blended is tuition-paying students in the same classroom with students that have individualized education programs or are considered special education. So we have AM and PM programming. We have 1 bilingual Spanish classroom, and then we have 2 instructional classrooms. Our instructional classroom has a lower student-to-teacher ratio in there, and those students are a little bit more needy. We do have a lot of students, their language is pretty limited in these classrooms. So we do have an AM and a PM, one of those as well. Transportation. So we do have a morning session from 9 to 11:30. Our program's 2.5 hours, morning and afternoon. We are very fortunate to have a separate bus route for our preschoolers in the morning. So it does run our entire River Trails community for our preschoolers that need busing. They are all in Bessie seats, harnessed in for safety. So it does take that bus route a little bit longer to run. So as we add more kids, the route takes a little bit longer. Families have to get on the bus actually to buckle their kids in, and then we have assistants to help get them off the bus and into school. Our afternoon program is the same. We have our own midday route to get them to school, but when they leave, they do ride the bus with the rest of our kindergartners, and then also going to the other schools to run those routes. I already talked about no school on Thursdays. Our team members. So we have 3 pre-K special education teachers. We have 1 bilingual Spanish. We have 3 pre-K assistants and a bilingual Spanish assistant that works in our bilingual class. We are still down 1 teaching assistant. We were initially fully staffed. That person has left, so we're still looking for 1 more teaching assistant for our earliest learners. So currently our enrollment is actually kind of interesting. So we have 11 students, actually 12 right now in our bilingual Spanish. We had a few that added in after our screening this past month. We have 21 students right now who are considered tuition paying. We have 15 students in our blended classes. We have 7 in our instructional between our AM and our PM. And then when we started the year, one of the things that was really interesting is we had so many families that were interested in our preschool program. So we had 11 students actually that started our year, or 11 on a wait list to start, or 12 actually. We had 1 from the wait list actually sign on. We are going to be adding some more tuition paying students second semester or after winter break. Our instructional pre-K classroom in the afternoon, our students have been doing really, really well. So we're actually looking into making more of a blended classroom, which is fantastic. So given the extra support they've had, we're like, it's time to give them some more access to some general education students. So we're going to be adding some more tuition paying students to that afternoon program, which is fantastic. So another program that I also mentioned earlier was ECDEC. And that is another program that's not run through the district, but they are our district students. So as we were trying to kind of pull the data and look at the data, to look at students that do not have IEPs versus students that do have IEPs. So these numbers include our special education students, it includes our bilingual students, our ECDEC students, our tuition paying students. And the goal is overall to have a 70-30 split between typical students and students that have IEPs. What I wanted to do then is kind of break down the data a little bit more to really kind of look at what our program at Prairie Trails looks like. So if you take a look here, our numbers finally are starting to balance out a little bit more. So we're starting to have more students, more tuition-paying students, typical students, and a higher percentage of those students versus students that have IEPs. So that's always the goal. We really use our neurotypical students as leaders in the classroom. They help support, model good behavior, good language skills for students that have IEPs as well. And that's just a quick overview, very quick overview of our pre-K program. Any questions? I know Dr. Stolzer had emailed some questions earlier, so I don't know if you want anything clarified or restated or. Sure.
Some questions earlier that I might, thank you very much, Janine, that I do want you to summarize. And then I actually I was like, I don't know if this slide was in there earlier. So do we have students with individualized education plans in ECDEC as well?
There's one right now that has a speech IEP.
Okay.
That's serviced by one of our district's SLPs.
Okay, because just one of the slides then I was confused about the enrollments with ECDEC with the bars of the not IEP. That. What does that mean then?
This one here. This one here. Yeah. So, we were trying to kind of pull out some of the data. We're looking at kiddos that have IEPs versus not IEPs and what ECDEC looks like. But we do have one student right now that has
it's
an
not
IEP.
just ECDEC, even though it says at the top enrollments.
So it's
all
the total enrollment with
including
ECDEC.
Yes.
Thank you. Now I understand.
Welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, so just I had asked you some questions earlier, and my questions were just about generally about the trending of how things are going.
Yeah.
And you were really helpful in answering those. So it does look like things are moving and growing.
We are moving and growing. We have, this year, we have like 18 students right now that are currently in our EI queue, our early intervention queue. That was the list that comes from the state. Those are students that receive services from birth to 3 years old. And once they turn 3, if parents would like to transition, then they come to the school district, so they become our students. So that's kind of what it is. But so what we do is we have our early intervention. We transition 6 months before their 3rd birthday, and then we have to have a meeting and an IEP in place on or before their 3rd birthday. So they're ready to start. As soon as EI services finish, we pick up. That's where we start. So it seems like, last year, our EI numbers were all over the place. A lot of families, they received EI services. They were remote. They weren't very consistent. So a lot of the students that are coming to us from EI are definitely qualifying for our services. So,
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And it sounds like you're seeing, like, one of the reasons I asked the questions that I asked,
Sure.
Number one, it's my thing.
That's your thing, yeah.
Also, it's, I do think that, early intervention is what's right and it's what's best for kids
Absolutely.
and families.
Yeah.
It's also what's fiscally responsible for our district, right? If we're going to get these kids early, it's going to, be the smartest investment for us.
Sure.
But it's also that early intervention it's the bellwether and it's the vanguard and it lets us know what's happening with our district.
Right, absolutely. And that's why it is so nice, going back to the very beginning, being all in one place too. So we see these kids as soon as they come from EI, they're in our pre-K program. We know them, we have their history. We know exactly where they've been, what kind of services they've been receiving. And it helps us to plan and be smart and fiscally responsible because we know what's coming.
Yeah, and some of the things you were talking about is that, what you're seeing is that, a lot of the families are seeking, evaluations and screenings for social emotional concerns.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, that we had talked about, even like just looking in kindergarten. That's why we have social work as one of our specials. So every student, has access to that on a weekly basis. The families that have come to us so far that have requested evaluations, not coming up through EI, the biggest concern was the behavior concerns, not their language. In typical years, it's been language concerns, motor concerns, some sort of developmental delay. It's really more now like supporting their behaviors at home. So they may not necessarily qualify for our program, but it gives us a chance then to be able to support those families, give them suggestions, some tips, and we follow back up with them. Are they still seeing these? Then maybe they need to come back. So it starts our relationship really early with these families before they even come to Prairie Trails, which is kind of a nice thing to be able to have.
Yeah, and I think that's, obviously, it's, better to support them at home and then have that surprise
Absolutely.
in kindergarten, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you explain to me, for the rest of the elementary schools, we don't necessarily have the luxury of saying, well, we're full. But can we do that with pre-K, where we can only take certain amount because of the amount of class space?
No, if they come to us and they qualify for special education, they're ours.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
Great,
We don't
that's what I was
turn them
hoping to
away.
hear.
But
Nope.
we do limit for typically
Yes.
developing students.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of how we started the year, limiting to a certain number. And now we're able to bring some more back in based on what we know we already have and kind of have an idea of what may be coming.
Gotcha.
So it gives us to do some planning, which is
Great,
nice.
thank you.
Sure. Anyone, anything else?
Anybody else have any questions?
All right.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very much for
you.
your time.
I
Looks like the program's off and running, thank you. And next up is Mrs. Seifert to share some information on a grant that was awarded from Bosch. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. And there are a few faces in the audience. I want to make sure we don't have any representatives from Bosch that were able to join us tonight. Okay, thanks. Well, allow me this opportunity to brag about them, even without them in our midst. So District 26 is very well known by the outside community as being an innovative school district. On a very regular basis, I will receive calls and emails from neighboring school districts seeking information about our amazing STEM programs for students. During our visits to Hersey High School, our teachers beam with pride as the high school teachers thank them profusely for the amazing work that they do in preparing our students for coding, STEM, and engineering classes. The work we do is noticed and it's admired. Greenhouses, STEM curriculum, innovation coaches, laptops for the innovation lab, professional development, the list goes on and on and on. And all of this combined has aided the development of our programming. And we're very, very proud of this. But we couldn't have done this alone. Since 2016, the Bosch Community Foundation has supported our schools in our district by developing programs and instruction to enhance our STEM and innovative programming. This year's grant of $57,000 will be primarily used to support the extension of this program at Prairie Trail School. But over the course of this 7-year relationship, Bosch has given back to our schools in ways that we've been recipients of over $300,000 in grant funding from Bosch alone. And I can say with 100% certainty, we would not be where we are today without Bosch's support. So please take this opportunity to join me in taking a moment to thank Bosch for believing in us, believing in our students. And we hope that the work we do today will pay it forward in supporting the Bosch Corporation in the future. Thank you for your time.
All right, committee reports. We'll just go down the line here. Curriculum Committee, Dr. Stolzer, you are the chair. Any updates?
Yeah, no, nothing new to report.
Okay. Finance Committee, Mrs. Johnson, you are the chair.
Nothing new to report?
Yes, there is. You have to approve the tax levy.
That's on the next on the thing. We have to approve the levy, but that's next on the agenda.
Right, we have it in Finance Committee. Okay, so let us get a motion and a second to approve the 2021 Tax Levy Resolution to be necessary in the total aggregate amount of $24,335,239 and to adopt the resolution to direct the reduction of the 2021 tax levy and to direct the Board President and Board Secretary to sign the prepared resolution by the Cook County Clerk's Office pertaining to the 2021 tax levy, their certificate of tax levy, and the truth in taxation certificate.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Johnson, second by Fiorito.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ron said enter the meeting at 7:46.
Okay, Ronstadt.
We're voting already?
On the tax
On
levy,
the tax
yes.
levy.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain
can
because I
abstain.
don't, I mean,
That's
I
right.
went through the budget, I
Yeah,
know
we
all
could
this
have
stuff.
just waited, but it's
I'll
all good.
abstain.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Okay. Fiorito,
Yes.
Stolzer, yes. Friedland,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Camardo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Operations Committee, Mr. Fiorito, you are the chair.
I believe we're looking to have a meeting in January. Okay.
Policy Committee, Dr. Stolzer.
We have a policy committee coming up on January 18th.
NSSEO, Mr. Ronstadt, you are our representative.
Yes, we had a meeting a week ago. Yep, it was a week ago. I'm sorry, I'm still pulling all my notes up and stuff. Had the Vision, the kids from the Vision program were the shining stars. And it was really cool to see their contributions and their progress. The gym at Timber Ridge is almost complete. From an outside, the facade is pretty much complete. They're just finishing touches on, and they might have an occupancy permit as early as January. So ribbon cutting, we're talking about it in the spring, and otherwise pretty uneventful meeting. So doing good budget-wise this year, and kind of some talks about maybe some or questions back to the administration about some capital needs that might be hanging out there, just because that was a topic with our home board here. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Public Relations Committee, I am the chair. I had a nice conversation with my representative from the Chicago Dogs, so I will be calling a Public Relations Committee meeting for probably the end of January, because it looks like a couple committees may have beaten me to the punch. So my other members, be on the lookout for an email soon. Negotiations Committee, Mr. Fiorito, you're the chair.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback off what Mr. Bob Kastner said. The negotiations are going very well. We had several meetings. We have another one tomorrow night. Some great conversation. It's been very respectful, and it's gone very well.
And keep that mic on. You are also our IASB delegate, so if you could report on what happened at the meeting.
Everybody, I think, got a copy or was copied on the email regarding all the issues that we voted on. Obviously, the guns in school was the big one that had a lot of people talking. It was a close vote, but they still maintain the right to not have guns in schools if a school board would allow it. So that was pretty much the big one. Everything else, you guys were, like I said, were copied on. If anybody has any questions, I can certainly try to address them. But it was they had a lot of technical problems because they tried something a little bit different. So I think they added an extra hour to it. But other than that, it was interesting experience.
As long as you have the floor, is there anything from the conference that you attended that?
It was, I would say it was probably, attendance-wise, it was very similar to what we've had years past. Obviously, some limitations with the masks. Some people were wearing them, some people were not. But the two classes I went to were both pretty good for the most part. That's it. I really don't have much to add.
Nope, I'm sorry to catch you off guard. Just thought I'd
No, it's okay.
toss it at you. EdRed, Dr. Wagner, you are the representative.
All right, you should be getting some information soon about the annual legislative dinner. It is on January 31st at Café La Cave, and they're having a panel. I'm not sure. The governor's office apparently is very interested in coming, but that happens very often, and then there's something else going on. If we don't wind up with the governor, we will probably wind up with Martin Torres, who is the deputy governor for education, who's, I think, just got appointed in November. and pretty impressive in terms of what when I've heard him speak. I've also been asked to be on a panel with them, so, and we're really talking a lot about what kids have needed after COVID. So it should be an interesting night, and we should have a lot of legislators in attendance, unless they call for some strange vote, which they have done before.
I want to hear you speak. Do it. You hear me speak all the time.
Exactly. Okay, President's report.
Wait, hold on, President Grimpy,
Yeah.
I very much apologize. I had my committees confused. We have a policy committee meeting on January 4th, and then we have a curriculum committee meeting on January 18th. Apologies.
Oh, now, it's all screwed up now. Start over. All right, let's call the meeting to order. Do the pledge.
Do it all over.
Okay, thank you. Can we go with the President's report? We're good with that? Yep. Okay, President's report, we've got some upcoming events that are pretty exciting. December 16th, the Indian Grove Winter Chorus Concert with grades 3 through 5. And on December 17th, River Trails Middle School Winter Carnival. December 20th through the 31st is our winter break. January 3rd, our Teacher Institute Day. January 17th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we have a board meeting on the 18th of January. And I've mentioned it numerous times, but mark your calendars, board members, for our board meeting on the 25th with Dee Molinari. I never say her name right. Is that close? Molinari.
Mr. Grimpy, if I can just add, I've been really impressed with our staff, our administrators, our teachers, our teacher assistants, in finding ways to have a little more normalcy in terms of events. The Winter Carnival at Trails is not going to be exactly like it is every year, but they still found a way to, it's still going to be a really amazing day. The Indian Grove concert is virtual, and they've been doing these YouTube watch parties. So they're finding ways to make it fun, and the big rule is, how can we do it while keeping the kids safe? And if we can figure out a way to do that, we've been doing it. And so it's been, I know it's been hard, but it's been great for the kids.
And you're also up for the superintendent's report.
All right. Well, this is my first report on one of my board goals, which is really interesting. I feel like the year just started, and here we are. It's December already. So one of my goals to support the strategic plan has been in the area of collaboration, and it was to implement the adaptive schools protocols at the district and school levels to develop our collective identity and capacity as collaborators, inquirers, and leaders, and to increase our capacity to initiate, develop, and sustain high-functioning groups. So that's sort of, if you think about the adaptive schools training, it is to help both presentation skills and in terms of having your groups function well. And I've been really excited because we did finish our training in June, and we've been implementing things. So sometimes you go to a training, you're like, that was great, I think I'm gonna do this, but we've really focused on implementation. Opening day with teachers, use some tools. The principals have been putting together a toolkit that they've been using. At the community engagement, that spend a buck and here's what, so what, now what, is a tool that's through that. The place where I think I personally have grown the most, and I've really been working on this, if you've ever taken a communications class, one of the things they talk about is paraphrasing and how helpful paraphrasing is. And it feels awkward sometimes. You're like, so what you're saying is, but on the flip side, it has been so helpful for me during negotiations. And they really talk about, and they trained you in 3 different kinds of paraphrasing. One of them is just that acknowledging. So you're saying this? Okay. So people know you're listening, and it really does make you listen rather than think about how I'm going to respond. You can really use that language, the paraphrasing, to organize thoughts. So I'm hearing 2 different things. There's this and there's that. Or abstracting, you know, someone will talk for a while and then you'll say, so a priority you have is, even though they didn't use those words exactly. And that has been really helpful for me during negotiations to make sure that we're listening to the needs of our association team. So I've been trying to do this in other areas, but that's the one where I'm like, this is so important. We also were able to train some of our teacher leaders. In December, we had 9 staff members who went for this training. And that was great. They're also looking for ways to implement it, and you can implement it as a classroom teacher too, or in a leadership role. We've developed working agreements, and that's something, so when you think about norms, just about every group would have the same norms. You want to be respectful, you want to listen to what others say, but show up to your meeting on time. But as you have different groups, you've got different needs. And so some of those ad hoc working agreements are going to look different. And we haven't evaluated them yet, but we'll be doing that in a month or so to see how are we doing. Should this continue to be one of our working agreements? So I'm very excited about that piece. And then with the principal observations or observations of my team, I'm expecting to see these things at work. And walking into Amy's professional development, I'm like, look, there's a tool, there's a tool, there's a tool. And then when we debrief, she's like, oh, I probably should have done this tool because it would have helped, that team do even better. So we're really excited about this. Then there's a super advanced training this summer. And when it was proposed to our principals, they said, yep, it's worth it. We want to do it. So we're very excited about that. And I do think that it helps us be better, have more productive teams and meetings, as well as I haven't done as much of the presentation skills. I know that's something that I think Christy has done more of. That's another great way to learn. Any questions?
Are you going to evaluate like the staff that this is being used not upon, but I know we do an annual evaluation anyways of the staff and how they feel and their camaraderie and things like that. And I know that Jody presented on the one that was done earlier, or just at the beginning of this year. But will that also be a part of it? Are you going to be using that as part of your evaluation? Like, do you feel heard? Or things like that when we ask them about, is that going to be part of?
So not the people who went to the training, you're talking
Correct,
about
like the
in
actual
general.
staff, like the general staff when you're presenting and you're using these tactics. I'm trying to, well, I guess we'll see like when you have the evaluation and everything and report back on that. But I'm just curious, like, are they also going to be?
It sounds like what she's saying is she's looking for your staff to do a 360 review.
Kind of, yeah.
And
Is that something that?
We can do that.
But separate, I know that this was already written, so this is already done and we already agreed upon this. I'm just curious how you're going to get that feedback.
And is it the whole district staff or leadership team or we?
Well, it can even be a pool of just people that you've actively used these.
Okay.
These tools with,
Yeah, I'd be really open.
Just to see how it's.
Because I think it's working. It would be really nice to know if other people think it's working.
Right,
I did get a nice comment from the intern from IEA who said that it seems like our team really cares about each other. And I do think that active listening is a nice way to demonstrate how much you care. So
I agree. Yeah, because it's good to know that it feels good to be listened to, I'm sure. So it would probably even help with.
There are some evaluation tools in the, I've got this book, I got another book. So maybe there is something that we can look at that would be helpful.
And it doesn't have to be across the entire district. I'm just saying, like maybe a pool of people.
All I can tell you is I don't want to ask the teachers to do one more survey.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, I agree.
But we can probably get some good feedback. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, FOIA requests. We had one request that Mrs. Reyes responded to on November 17th. Thank you, Patty. And future topics. Does anybody have any items for future consideration? Okay, brings us up to our second session of visitors' comments. Does anybody have any comments they would like to make? Okay, then I will entertain a motion in a second to enter into closed session for the purpose of personnel, students, litigation, leases, and negotiations.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Friedland, second by Johnson.
Fiorito,
Yes.
Ronstadt,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
Friedland,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Stolzer, yes. Motion carries.
Okay, let's take about a 10-minute break, and we'll go into closed session. Action to take, we have no action for open session. Board meeting recaps. Anybody have anything for recap? I thought it was a good meeting. Appreciate everybody's patience and openness.
I agree with Donna.
Say this.
Nice touch, William. That's why I voted the way I did, because I agree in Donna's principle that you sign what is written and not the intentions.
That's fine.
So that was my basis of support Donna on that.
Throw that out there when you vote, when you want to vote no, kind of make a comment before you vote no, so that way.
That's fine to get.
Yeah, just like Donna did was fine. Just, kind of
Also-
gives everybody understanding of why maybe they're on the fence and they think, you could sway them, but at least it gives them an understanding as to why you're voting no instead of just no.
And like Donna, you might have a brilliant idea that other people would agree with.
Yes.
So it helps.
You would have swayed me.
There you go.
Kidding, but you might have.
All right, let's get a motion and a second to adjourn.
Also, President Grimpy won't be here for our next meeting,
I will not.
so just everybody be nice to me.
Oh, I will.
And no, I will still not be president, but like, everybody be nice. And just remember, I'm going to need help. Thank you.
Aren't you supposed to run the show if he's not here?
Yeah, she will be.
Yeah. I will be
Did I
at,
hear that there was a motion?
there's a motion and a second, we're looking for a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Friedland, second by Johnson.
I'll get this, just go.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the best. Okay.
Yes, regular citizens?
You're our regular.
Friedland and who?
We don't have any other.
Friedland and Johnson.
Thank you. We are. Fiorito. I'll come back to him. Grimpy.
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Camardo.
Yes.
Stolzer.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Ronstadt. Fiorito.
Yes.
We are
We are
adjourned.
adjourned at 9:56 PM.